Good morning. Let me ask you something difficult. What if I told you that just one single hour, 60 minutes carved out of the 24 you are already given, could completely alter the trajectory of your life? Not your job, not your bank account, you. Most people laugh at that. They think transformation requires some grand event, a lottery win, a miracle, or a sudden stroke of genius. But that's not how change works. Change does not crash into you like lightning. It creeps in quietly, one disciplined hour at a time. And the tragedy is this: most people will waste that hour every single day. They will trade it for distraction, gossip, scrolling, for things that don't matter tomorrow. But here's the truth: the person you are right now and the person you could become are separated by what you do in that 1 hour. 1 hour of deliberate effort a day is the difference between a decade wasted and a decade transformed. And I'll tell you this: if you cannot give yourself 60 minutes of honest discipline, then you are not serious about your future. So most people underestimate the weight of an hour. They treat it as if it were disposable, something they can throw away without consequence. But that's not true. An hour is not just an hour. It is the building block of your entire life. You are not a collection of decades. You are a collection of moments. And the smallest meaningful unit of time that you have enough power to control is about 60 minutes. That's the truth. If you let that hour go to waste, you are essentially throwing away the very currency that shapes your future self. And you do it not once, but repeatedly. Every day. That is why lives drift into mediocrity. Because people allow countless small hours to slip through their fingers unnoticed. The strange thing is, when people say they don't have time, they are lying, sometimes to others, but mostly to themselves. Everyone has the same 24 hours. What they lack is direction. They don't know what they value enough to sacrifice for. Because once you have something of genuine value to aim at, you can find an hour for it. If your child were sick, you would find the time. If your survival depended on it, you would find the time. So when you say you don't have 60 minutes to give to your own future, what you are really saying is that your future isn't important enough to you. And that is a damning admission. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine what would happen if you set aside just 1 hour a day to pursue something that matters, to read something that challenges your thinking, to write down the chaotic storm of your ideas until clarity emerges, to practice a skill that stretches you beyond your current competence. At first, the results would be invisible. That is what makes it difficult. We are conditioned to expect immediate returns, but life rarely pays out in that way. Instead, change accrues gradually. Like drops of water collecting in a bucket, it does not seem like much until, suddenly, it overflows. Think about the math. 1 hour a day is 7 hours a week. That's 20 then, and 300 hours a year. 300 hours of focused, deliberate effort in one specific direction. 300 hours of reading, training, learning, building. That is not trivial. That is enough to put you ahead of 95% of the people who never bothered to start. In 5 years, it's 1,500, nearly the equivalent of a full-time university degree earned in the margins of your ordinary life. All because you made the decision to protect 1 small hour a day as if it were sacred. So, you see, the question is not whether you have time. The question is whether you are willing to confront the truth about how you spend it. An hour is not small. It is the hour that changes everything. If you decide to let it, the tragedy of wasted time is that it rarely feels wasted in the moment. That's the problem. Distraction is seductive because it disguises itself as rest, or as entertainment, or as something harmless. But the cost becomes obvious only later, when you look back and see nothing built, nothing created, nothing grown. You scroll endlessly through a screen, chasing novelty, but novelty is not knowledge. You gossip, you complain, you replay the same arguments in your head, and at the end of it, what do you have? Nothing. A void. An empty hour that could have been used to shape your future, but was instead sacrificed to the god of immediate comfort. We live in a world that profits from your inattention. That is not an exaggeration. It is an economic fact. Entire industries have been engineered to hijack your focus and keep you hooked in loops of meaningless consumption. Social media platforms, streaming services, even the endless cycle of news, they are designed not to inform you, not to enrich you, but to capture as many minutes of your day as possible. Why? Because your attention is the most valuable currency in the modern world. And the uncomfortable truth is this: if you are not consciously choosing where your time goes, someone else is making that choice for you. Now, it's not that leisure is bad. Rest is necessary. Play is important. But there's a difference between rest and waste. Rest rejuvenates you. Waste leaves you feeling empty and guilty, even if you try to ignore it. And when waste becomes habit, the damage compounds. You end up living a life of quiet frustration, because deep down you know you could have been more, should have been more, but you traded your hours for nothing. Think about it this way: one wasted hour doesn't look dangerous. It's just 60 minutes. But if you waste 1 hour every day, that's 360. 5 hours in a year, that's over 15 entire days gone. 2 weeks of your life erased every single year. And most people waste far more than that. They waste 2, 3, 4 hours a day without noticing. Multiply that by a decade, and you've lost years of your existence. Not years spent resting, or loving, or creating. Years spent doing nothing that mattered. That is a tragedy of the highest order. And yet, we excuse it. We say, I'm tired, or I deserve it, or it's not a big deal. But here's the harsh truth: the future does not care about your excuses. Reality does not reward good intentions. It rewards action. And every wasted hour is an hour you can never retrieve. There are no refunds on time. Once it's gone forever. So the real danger is not that people lack potential. Most people have immense potential. The danger is that they squander it, hour by hour, until there is nothing left. That is why the discipline of guarding 1 hour a day is so powerful. It resists the pull of waste. It reclaims what would otherwise be lost. It is a rebellion against mediocrity. And make no mistake, mediocrity does not come from one catastrophic mistake. It comes from countless wasted hours, stacked quietly on top of each other, until an entire life has slipped by. One of the most underestimated forces in human life is compounding. People grasp it when it comes to money, at least vaguely. They understand that if you invest a small amount and let it grow, it multiplies beyond expectation. But they fail to recognize that the same principle applies to time, to effort, to knowledge, to discipline. 1 hour of focused effort may appear insignificant in isolation, but when repeated daily, it becomes unstoppable. Think of water. A single drop seems harmless. It carries no obvious power. You would not fear it. But what happens when that drop falls consistently, in the same place, over months and years? It wears down stone. Something soft overcomes something hard, not by force, but by persistence. That is what 1 hour a day does to the obstacles in your life. It carves pathways where none seemed possible. It erodes resistance. It turns impossible into inevitable. The trouble is, most people do not live long enough in the same direction to witness the transformation. They expect to see the fruit too quickly. They go to the gym once and see no change, so they quit. They pick up a book, finish a chapter, and find themselves no wiser, so they stop reading. They practice a skill for a week and remain clumsy, so they abandon it. They mistake the lack of immediate results for failure, when in reality, the early stages of growth are always invisible. Nothing meaningful develops instantly. The roots grow underground long before the branches appear above the soil. Now consider what compounding effort looks like in practice. 1 hour of learning every day equals roughly 365 hours a year. Divide that into the standard work week of 40 hours, and you have over 9 weeks, more than 2 months, of full-time study accomplished in the margins of your ordinary life. That is enough to master the fundamentals of a language, to develop a valuable skill, to shift your career trajectory entirely. In 5 years, it's the equivalent of nearly half a decade of professional training, earned without ever leaving your current path. People marvel at experts, calling them gifted or genius. But in reality, many of them are simply individuals who compounded 1 hour a day for years while others wasted theirs. The same is true for health. An hour of exercise each day may not transform your body overnight, but give it a year, and you are fitter than 90% of your peers. Give it 5 years, and you are unrecognizable compared to your old self. Or relationships. An hour of honest, attentive conversation with your spouse or child each day may seem ordinary, but over time it creates bonds of trust and understanding that others only dream of. This is the hidden truth. Greatness is not built in grand gestures. It is built in the quiet, consistent rhythm of small actions repeated daily. Most people underestimate this because it lacks drama. They are searching for explosions, not slow burns. But explosions fade quickly. A slow burn lasts. So when you consider the value of 1 hour, don't measure it by what you see today. Measure it by what it becomes when compounded over years. Because time, once directed, is the most powerful lever you possess. And the remarkable thing is this: the same compounding works in reverse. Waste 1 hour a day, and the erosion works against you. Discipline compounds, but so does neglect. The choice is yours. One of the great errors people make is that they wait for motivation to arrive before they act. They think they need to feel inspired before they can begin. But that is backwards. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes like the weather. If you build your life on it, you will remain inconsistent, and inconsistency destroys progress. The truth is harsher but far more liberating. You don't need motivation. You need discipline. Discipline is not a feeling. Discipline is a decision, repeated daily, whether you feel like it or not. Consider the difference between amateurs and professionals. Amateurs show up when it's convenient. Professionals show up regardless. An amateur writer waits for inspiration. A professional sits down every day at the same time and writes, even if the words come slowly. An amateur athlete trains when they're excited. A professional trains when it's raining, when they're tired, when no one is cheering. And that's why professionals improve and amateurs stagnate. It's not because the professional is necessarily more talented. It's because the professional understands that consistency compounds and motivation cannot be trusted. But consistency does more than produce results. It changes identity. When you act consistently, you stop merely doing the habit, you become the kind of person who does it. If you write daily, you stop saying, I want to be a writer, and instead you become one. If you exercise daily, you are no longer trying to get fit. You are an athlete in practice. Identity, in this sense, is shaped not by what you wish for, but by what you repeat. And that shift is powerful. Because once your actions redefine who you believe yourself to be, the habit reinforces itself. You no longer need to convince yourself to show up. It becomes part of who you are. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. They burn themselves out chasing quick results. They try to transform overnight, then collapse under the weight of unrealistic expectations. But small, deliberate, consistent habits, these are sustainable. They appear insignificant at first. Reading 10 pages of a book, writing a single paragraph, practicing scales on a piano for half an hour. Hardly worth mentioning in isolation. But repeat them daily, and the growth becomes exponential. 10 pages a day is 50 pages a year. That's 10 or 12 serious books. 1 paragraph a day is a book within a year. Half an hour of practice daily is over 180 hours in 6 months. Enough to build a foundation of skill few people ever achieve. This is why discipline must replace motivation as your foundation. Discipline says, I will do this regardless of how I feel. And paradoxically, once you embrace discipline, motivation tends to show up anyway. When you see the small improvements stacking up, when your identity begins to shift, when you realize that you are slowly becoming someone stronger, smarter, and more capable than you were yesterday, that is when motivation returns. But by then, you no longer depend on it. So remember this: the difference between who you are and who you could be is not found in sudden bursts of energy. It is found in quiet, relentless consistency. And the choice to be consistent is a choice you must make every single day. If you want to understand the most reliable investment you can ever make, it isn't money. It isn't real estate. It isn't even your career. Industries vanish. Economies turn. What endures? what multiplies quietly and persistently. Learning is the one investment that never depreciates, never collapses, and can never be taken from you. It is the most secure form of wealth you can accumulate, and unlike money, it grows as you use it. Consider this: money sitting in a bank decays if inflation eats away at it. A house deteriorates if you don't maintain it. But learning, when you truly integrate it into your mind, only strengthens with use. Read a book that challenges you, and its ideas change the structure of your thought. Practice a skill consistently, and it becomes part of your nervous system, something you can call upon in any circumstance. Knowledge doesn't expire. It compounds. This is why the most successful people across history, across cultures, industries, even centuries, all share one trait: they are lifelong learners. They do not treat education as something that ends at graduation. They recognize that learning is not a stage of life, but the essence of life itself. They read, they observe, they seek mentors. They expose themselves to new fields. And as the world changes, as it always does, they adapt, while others cling to what they once knew and become obsolete. The world you live in is changing faster than ever. Technologies that didn't exist a decade ago now dominate entire economies. Jobs once secure are vanishing. Industries are reshaping overnight, and in such a world, what protects you is not stability. It is adaptability. If you can learn quickly, you can pivot when the ground shifts beneath you. You are not trapped by the limitations of your current role, because you've been expanding beyond it 1 hour at a time. The power of learning is not just in the information you gain, it is in the transformation of your mind. When you commit to learning daily, you change the way you perceive reality. Problems that once seemed insurmountable begin to look like puzzles you can solve. Patterns emerge where before you saw only chaos. Knowledge sharpens your vision. It gives you leverage. The more you know, the better you can act, because your decisions are grounded not in guesswork, but in understanding. And here's the remarkable thing. In our era, access to knowledge is more abundant than at any other time in history. You carry in your pocket a device that grants you access to more information than the richest kings possessed a century ago. You can learn a language, study philosophy, understand psychology, acquire technical skills, all from where you stand. The gatekeepers are gone. The only question is, will you use what is available to you, or will you squander it on endless distraction? If you dedicate just 1 hour a day to serious learning, reading, writing, practicing, questioning, over years, you transform yourself. You become irreplaceable because you are not static. You are evolving. And when everyone else is scrambling to catch up with change, you are already ahead, prepared, capable. Learning is the best investment because it does not merely improve your circumstances. It improves you. And you carry yourself wherever you go. One of the most dangerous mistakes you can make is to believe that tomorrow will look exactly like today. Life does not remain stable. It moves, it shifts, it collapses, it rebuilds. The ground beneath you is always in motion, and if you wait until disaster strikes before you begin preparing, it will already be too late. Preparation is not optional. It is survival. The wise build before they need it. The foolish wait until the storm has already arrived. Imagine a soldier who only begins to train once the war is declared. He will not survive. Or a farmer who plants seeds only when the hunger sets in. He will starve. Yet countless people live exactly like this. They assume their job is safe until the company downsizes. They assume their health will hold until disease arrives. They assume their relationships will endure until neglect rots them from the inside. And then, when crisis finally erupts, they find themselves weak, unprepared, incapable of responding. Preparation is the antidote to fragility. It is what allows you to withstand chaos when it inevitably comes. If you spend 1 hour a day developing your skills, strengthening your body, expanding your mind, you are building reserves. You are creating a foundation. So when the unexpected happens, and it will, you are not crushed. You bend, but you do not break. That is resilience. And resilience is not born in the moment of crisis. It is forged in the quiet hours of discipline before the crisis arrives. Think about health. People wait until their body fails before they decide to care for it. But by then, the damage is often irreversible. Prevention was always cheaper than repair. The same is true in finance. If you save and invest when times are stable, you have a cushion when instability hits. But if you live carelessly and spend recklessly, one sudden downturn can erase everything. Or take relationships. If you invest in honest communication, small daily kindnesses, shared time, then when conflict comes, as it always does, you have trust stored up. If you neglect those things, then when trouble comes, the bond snaps. The real test of character is not whether you can act in a crisis. The real test is whether you will prepare for the crisis before it arrives. That requires foresight. It requires humility, because you must admit that you are vulnerable. You must accept that you are not invincible, that the storm will come for you sooner or later. But once you acknowledge that truth, you gain power. You can build fortifications in advance. You can strengthen the foundations of your life, so that when the winds rise, you remain standing. This is the principle: build before you need it. Build strength before weakness is exposed. Build knowledge before ignorance costs you. Build character before temptation confronts you. Build discipline before chaos overwhelms you. If you do this 1 hour a day, you become like a tree planted by a river. Storms may batter it, but its roots run deep, and when others fall, you remain upright, not by accident, but by preparation. People behave as if they have an unlimited supply of time. They act as though tomorrow is guaranteed, as though next year is promised. But it isn't. Life is finite, and the clock is always ticking. Every hour you waste is one you will never see again. This truth is uncomfortable, even frightening, but it is also clarifying. Because once you grasp it fully, you begin to see each day differently. You stop treating time as though it were cheap, and you start treating it as though it were sacred. Ask yourself, how many hours of your life have you already squandered? Hours lost to distractions, to trivial arguments, to scrolling mindlessly through things that do not matter. If you could gather them all together and look at them as a single block of time, you would see years of your life wasted. Years that could have been spent learning, building, loving, creating. And the harsh truth is this: those years are gone forever. You cannot buy them back. But you can choose differently today. You can treat every hour as if it were a piece of your life, because that is exactly what it is. 1 hour given to meaningless distraction is 1 hour of your life surrendered. 1 hour used with intention is 1 hour invested in the person you could become. The difference between the two is the difference between regret and fulfillment. The urgency of time becomes even more vivid when you consider mortality. One day, sooner than you expect, your time will run out. The people you love will vanish. You will vanish. And most people live as though this fact were irrelevant. But the truth is, everything you do is framed by the certainty of death. The question is not whether the end will come, it is whether you will be ready when it does. Will you leave behind a life squandered, or a life well spent? Accountability to time is the foundation of responsibility. To waste your hours is not only a betrayal of yourself, it is a betrayal of those who depend on you. Your family, your friends, your community, they all pay a price when you choose laziness over effort, distraction over purpose. Because you could be more, you could contribute more, you could love more deeply, think more clearly, act more courageously. But every wasted hour diminishes not only your potential but also the lives you touch. The ancient philosophers often reminded themselves of mortality, not to sink into despair, but to sharpen their vision, to live as if each day could be their last. Because in truth, any day could be. That doesn't mean you should live recklessly. It means you should live deliberately. If today were your last, would you want it to be remembered for trivialities or for something meaningful? The time you waste today will accumulate into regret tomorrow. The time you invest today will accumulate into strength tomorrow. And once you understand this, the urgency becomes clear. You cannot afford to drift. You cannot afford to treat your hours as disposable. Every hour is a choice. Every hour is a step toward who you could be or away from it. At some point, you must realize that your life is not only about you. Your actions ripple outward, affecting everyone around you. The way you spend your time, the discipline you cultivate, the habits you form, All of these shape not just your destiny, but the lives of those who depend on you, those who look to you, those who will come after you. Whether you admit it or not, you are leaving a legacy. The only question is, will it be one of strength or weakness, or cowardice, of growth or decay? Too many people live as though their choices exist in isolation. They think, it's only my life, my time, my decisions. But that is false. A parent who neglects discipline does not only ruin their own potential, they cripple their children's example. A leader who squanders their responsibility does not only waste their career, they damage the trust of their followers. Every one of us lives inside a network of influence, and everything we do echoes far beyond the boundaries of our own skin. So when you build discipline 1 hour at a time, you are not just constructing a future for yourself. You are offering a model for others to follow. You are proving that growth is possible, that order can emerge from chaos, that a better version of oneself can be wrestled out of weakness and failure. And people notice. Even if they never say it, they see it. Your consistency challenges them. Your effort inspires them. Your resilience gives them hope. Legacy is not something you write at the end of your life. Legacy is built daily, in the smallest actions repeated over years. It's in whether you told the truth when it was hard. It's in whether you stood up straight when you felt like collapsing. It's in whether you treated others with dignity, even when you could have chosen contempt. That is how character is remembered. Not through grand speeches, but through 1,000 small acts of integrity and courage. But legacy is not only about being remembered. It is about becoming who you must be while you are still alive. Too many people wait for permission. They wait for certainty. They wait for the right moment to become serious about their life. But the right moment never arrives. The world is chaotic. You will always feel unready. That is why you must begin now. Because the sooner you start shaping yourself into someone stronger, wiser, more capable, the more years you will have to live as that person, and the greater your impact will be. And remember this, the world does not need more people who waste their hours in distraction and self-pity. It needs people who rise. People who demonstrate what discipline can achieve. People who show that transformation is possible. That could be you. In fact, it must be you, because no one else can live your life. No one else can carry your responsibilities. No one else can fulfill the potential that is uniquely yours. So ask yourself when the end comes, and what will remain? Will people look at your life and see wasted potential? Or will they see someone who rose to the challenge, who built strength from struggle, who lived fully and left behind a trail for others to follow? Your legacy is being written right now, in how you use this hour, and the next one, and the one after that. Write it well.